5:19 local time, Caribbean Sea. A faint surface contact flickers onto the edge of the radar screen. Low profile, no AIS signal, no broadcast ID. Through optics, there's no visible flag, just a narrow radar return sliding across the water faster than vessels normally move in this part of the sea. The watch officer leans closer to the display. Each sweep updates the range. The contact is holding a steady north-northwest course, speed already above 20 knots. That alone stands out. In this corridor, normal traffic cruises through. It doesn't race. The radar technician calls it out. A single surface contact, small displacement, bearing unchanged. The plotter marks the track. Time to closest approach keeps increasing rather than shrinking, which means only one thing. The vessel isn't drifting toward traffic. It's deliberately moving away from it. On the bridge, the officer of the deck stays calm. No dramatic reaction. There's no need. The ship's posture doesn't shift, but the flow of information tightens. Every update now matters. Electro-optical cameras lock onto the target. Through the thin morning haze, the image slowly clears. A narrow hull, low in the water, worn paint along the sides. No fishing gear in sight. The wake pattern doesn't match trolling or casual cruising. It looks like a civilian boat, but its behavior tells another story. Radio calls go out on the standard international frequencies. Clear, professional, repeated. No answer. The silence is logged in the Combat Information Center. Analysts start building a quick profile. Length under 40 feet. Twin outboard engines. Enough fuel to maintain high speed for a while, but not built for long distance. The wake is tight and controlled. Whoever is driving knows exactly what they're doing. The contact accelerates again. 25 knots now. The bow rises slightly under power. That's another clue. The hull is carrying extra weight. The track supervisor sums it up quietly. Heavy load, small boat, high speed. No response on radio. No one disagrees. This part of the sea has a reputation. Sailors sometimes call it a funnel. Routes from the south narrow here before spreading out again farther north. Anyone trying to move unnoticed often pushes hard through this stretch, hoping no one is paying attention. But someone is. The destroyer keeps its course. No sudden turns, no rush. The objective isn't pursuit yet, it's confirmation. Another radio call goes out, still nothing. The contact makes a small adjustment, 5 degrees to port. Not dramatic, but intentional, almost like a test to see if anyone is watching. They are. The captain steps onto the bridge wing with binoculars already raised. He doesn't ask questions. The information is already where it should be. Log the maneuver, he says evenly. Down in CIC, the tracking solution updates. The boat's route isn't random. It weaves carefully between known shipping lanes, avoiding the most predictable patrol patterns. Whoever is at the controls understands these waters. That knowledge won't help much now. The watch officer orders the aviation detachment to stand by. No launch yet, just readiness. The message is quiet but clear. This contact matters. Another radar update. Speed climbs again, 28 knots. That crosses a line. The officer of the deck nods once. Contact classified as a runner. The term goes into the log. It doesn't mean hostile. It doesn't mean proven wrongdoing. It simply describes intent, a vessel choosing speed and distance as its main defense. On the camera feed, the deck becomes clearer. 3 figures are visible now. No life jackets, no fishing equipment, no coolers, just bodies leaning into the motion while engines roar behind them. The destroyer still doesn't chase. Instead, it measures everything. Wind, sea state, relative motion, timing, every variable that would matter if things escalate. The ocean itself remains quiet. No alarms, no raised voices. Just the steady rhythm of a warship doing its job. Detect, track, decide. The small boat keeps running. It has no idea how little room it actually has left. It doesn't know how much of its story is already written in radar returns, wake patterns, and the silence on the radio. On the bridge, the captain lowers the binoculars. "Keep eyes on," he says calmly. This one isn't stopping on its own. The destroyer increases speed slightly. Nothing dramatic, just enough to maintain the right geometry. Ahead, the small boat pounds across open water, engines wide open. A decision has been made, and there's no easy way back from it. The chase hasn't truly begun yet, but the window to escape is already shrinking. Signal bars drop to 0 as the distance between the destroyer and the runner stretches out, then stabilizes. On paper, the small boat seems to have the advantage. It's lighter, faster in a straight line, built to move quickly and vanish before anyone reacts. That assumption is already becoming outdated. On the bridge, the officer of the deck orders a careful increase in speed. Not a sprint, not a pursuit, just enough to keep the geometry clean and every option open. The destroyer doesn't need to close the gap right now. It only needs to control it. Inside the Combat Information Center, the picture sharpens with every radar sweep. The runner isn't heading toward a port. It isn't aiming for coastal cover. Instead, it's pushing deeper into open water, betting that speed and distance will solve everything. That's the mistake. The aviation detachment begins moving with purpose. Rotors still idle, but helmets are on, and checklists are open. The helicopter is a tool, not a threat. And at this moment, it's being positioned carefully. Electro-optical sensors stay locked on the target. As the distance narrows slightly, details become clearer. The hull rides low. The engines are pushed hard. The wake stretches long and narrow behind the boat. This isn't panic driving. This is practiced. The track supervisor calls another update. The runner maintaining high speed, course steady. The destroyer answers without words. Data flows. Calculations refine. Time and fuel are estimated on both sides of the equation. Whether the crew on that small boat realizes it or not, vessels like theirs live on tight margins. Fuel capacity, engine temperature, sea conditions. Every minute at full throttle eats into all three. The destroyer doesn't face those limits. Another radio call goes out, clear, professional, recorded. Still no response. The captain studies the surface picture from the bridge display. He's seen this pattern before. Different boat, different crew, but the same logic. Run hard now and hope the larger ship hesitates. Hope the ocean is wide enough to hide it. It rarely is. At 5:34, the aviation officer reports ready. The captain nods once. Launch! The helicopter lifts smoothly from the deck and climbs into the early morning light. It doesn't rush forward. Instead, it arcs wide and gains altitude, positioning itself for maximum visibility without confrontation. The message isn't intimidation, it's awareness. From above, the scene changes immediately. The runner's path is obvious, etched across the sea in white water and engine exhaust. Sensors from the helicopter capture the details. Engines glowing hot in thermal view, the hull vibrating under strain, the crew moving with tight focus. The pilot maintains distance, safe, professional, unmistakably present. Another radio call goes out from the air, calm voice. Standard wording, no threats, no emotion, no reply. The small boat doesn't alter course, but the wake tightens and the bow rises again. The engines are being pushed harder than they were meant to run for long. Back in CIC, analysts notice immediately. Fuel consumption is rising sharply. Engine stress shows clearly on thermal sensors. This pace can't last forever. The destroyer adjusts its position again, matching geometry rather than speed. Close enough to manage the situation, far enough to keep things controlled. This isn't a race, it's pressure building slowly. At 5:41, the runner makes its first decisive move, a sharp turn to starboard. Not random. A classic attempt to force new calculations and disrupt tracking. It doesn't work. The helicopter slides smoothly to maintain the same relative position. The destroyer holds steady. In CIC, the track updates without hesitation. Moments later, the boat straightens out and accelerates again. 30 knots now, maybe more. The bridge remains quiet. The captain doesn't raise his voice. The systems are working exactly as designed. Layer information, remove uncertainty, and leave the other side with fewer choices. From the air, the crew count is confirmed. 3 individuals. No safety gear, no fishing equipment, no visible cargo on deck. Whatever they're protecting is hidden below. That detail speaks volumes. The aviation officer relays the assessment. The boat is heavy, not configured for fishing, still not responding. The captain replies with a single word. Copy. Minutes pass. The sea stays calm. The runner keeps pushing forward. But the signs are becoming impossible to miss for anyone who knows how to read them. The engines don't sound as sharp anymore. The turns aren't as tight. The advantage the small boat once had is slowly fading. Speed alone isn't saving them now. Ahead, the ocean stretches wide and empty. To the crew on that boat, it might still look like open freedom. But from the destroyer's bridge, and from the helicopter circling above, it looks more like a corridor with invisible walls slowly closing in. The pursuit isn't really about catching up anymore. It's about waiting for fuel, gravity, and simple physics to finish the work. 5:49 local time. The runner's speed drops by 2 knots. It's subtle, almost impossible to notice without instruments, but the systems detect it instantly. Fuel consumption is catching up. Engine temperatures are rising. The narrow margin that kept the boat ahead is starting to disappear. This is the moment the crew has been waiting for. The helicopter begins descending, not aggressively, but with clear intent. The altitude lowers step by step until the aircraft is close enough for the people below to feel the wash of the rotors brushing the water's surface. Still no direct flyover, no intimidation, just unmistakable presence. From the cockpit, the pilot holds position slightly off the runner's bow, close enough to be clearly visible, far enough to remain within every procedural boundary. Another radio message goes out, calm voice, steady tone. Unidentified vessel, reduce speed immediately and prepare to be boarded. The wording is precise and familiar. Phrases spoken countless times in waters like these. No reply. Instead, the runner pushes the engines again. Exhaust darkens as the motors flare. The hull shudders while the boat struggles to regain speed it simply doesn't have anymore. Inside the Combat Information Center, the picture updates in real time. The boat's movements are no longer smooth. Each correction grows wider. Each turn demands more energy. The systems don't speculate. They simply observe. On the bridge, the captain watches the helicopter's video feed. His expression doesn't change. Not impressed, just patient. Proceed with visual warning, he says. The helicopter shifts slightly forward, matching the boat's path. The crew chief activates a laser designator, non-lethal, purely visual, but impossible to ignore. A sharp green dot appears on the deck of the runner. It moves once across the bow, then steadies on the cabin. For crews who know these waters, this moment says everything. It means they're no longer just suspected. They're clearly seen. Still, the boat keeps going. The helm jerks again, another attempt to break tracking, another push for distance. The wake spreads wide as the hull struggles through the maneuver. Back on the destroyer, there's no rush, no shouting, no alarms. Just quiet coordination as procedures continue exactly as written. On the forecastle, the ship's forward gun mount rotates slightly. Not enough to aim, just enough to be visible. A message delivered without a single word. Above, the helicopter holds its position. The laser remains steady. Another radio call follows, first in English, then in Spanish. Still silence. At 5:57, the runner's speed drops again. This time, it doesn't recover. 23 knots, then 21. The engines are losing the argument. From the air, the helicopter crew can see the shift clearly. One of the men on the deck glances upward, not toward the destroyer, but toward the helicopter. The look lingers a second longer than before. That moment is logged. The runner attempts one last move. The engines cut briefly, then surge again, trying to disrupt timing and create an opening. But the maneuver is sloppy. It costs more speed than it gains. The destroyer closes the distance slightly, still controlled, still measured. Not to threaten, just to remove any remaining uncertainty. Inside CIC, the track supervisor reports the update. Runner decelerating, no effective maneuvering. The captain nods once. "This is it," he says quietly. The helicopter lowers further, now clearly positioned ahead of the runner's bow. Rotor wash slaps against the water, sending spray over the small boat's deck. The green laser flicks once more across the cabin window. The message is complete. Finally, the engines pull back. The bow settles lower in the water. The wake shortens. It's not surrender. It's exhaustion. At 6:01, the boat drops below 15 knots, then 12. The destroyer holds its position. The helicopter maintains its steady hover. No cheers, no celebration, just confirmation. The runner drifts forward slowly now, no longer trying to escape, no longer pretending the situation is anything else. On the bridge, the captain gives the next instruction. Prepare the boarding team. The last exit, speed and distance, is gone. The pursuit didn't end with a collision. It didn't end with a shot. Like most of these encounters, it ended with pressure, limits, and a decision that arrived too late to matter. 6:08 local time. The sea is calm again. The runner sits low in the water, engines idling unevenly, drifting without direction. From afar, it might look harmless. Up close, the story is different. On the destroyer's starboard side, a rigid hull inflatable boat is lowered into the water with practiced precision. Every movement is controlled, no wasted motion, no raised voices. The boarding team moves together, helmets secured, gloves on, radios checked. Their gear is present but understated. This isn't about force, it's about control. The RHIB accelerates smoothly across the remaining wake. Above, the helicopter remains in position, watching. Cameras continue recording, every second documented. Nothing here is informal, nothing is left to memory. As the RHIB approaches, the three men aboard the runner grow still. Their hands remain visible, movements slow. The look on their faces isn't defiance, it's calculation slowly giving way to acceptance. The coxswain guides the RHIB alongside. Lines are passed. A sailor grips the rail and steps onto the deck. Coast Guard, United States Navy, remain where you are. The words are calm and neutral. The men comply. They're separated immediately and positioned where they can be clearly seen. No sudden movements, no resistance. Their eyes follow the sailors briefly, then drop toward the deck. They know the routine. That detail speaks volumes. The boarding officer begins his inspection. Forward first, then aft. Every step deliberate. No rushing, no guessing. The deck is nearly empty. No fishing gear, no coolers. No personal equipment beyond the bare minimum, but the hatches tell another story. Fresh hardware, edges tightly taped. The officer kneels and taps the hatch. Solid. He glances up at another sailor and gives a small nod. The hatch is opened. The smell appears first. Not fuel, not salt water, plastic, tape, stale air trapped too long. Inside the compartment, packages are stacked with careful precision. Square bundles of identical size wrapped in multiple layers. Plastic, burlap, plastic again. Triple sealed and waterproofed, clearly prepared to survive days at sea. There's no doubt anymore. One bundle is lifted, heavier than it appears, dense. The wrapping is open just enough to confirm what everyone already suspects. Inside are tightly pressed off-white bricks, each stamped with markings meant for people who understand their meaning. Cocaine. The count begins immediately. 1, 2, 3. The numbers continue climbing until 19 bundles are accounted for, packed efficiently to maximize space and balance. No filler, no mistakes. This wasn't a small operation. Each bundle is photographed exactly where it sits. Tagged, logged with time and coordinates, hands visible in every image. The chain of custody begins right here. The boarding officer reports the discovery. Calm voice, clear facts. Confirmed contraband, significant quantity. Back on the destroyer, the reply is brief. Copy. Within minutes, estimates start forming. Weight, packaging quality, route indicators. And the numbers add up quickly. The estimated street value, around $98 million. On the runner, the three men stay silent. They don't argue. They don't deny anything. There's no point. The evidence sits just beneath their feet. They're searched, secured, and seated where the boarding team can keep them in view. Their faces are photographed, their hands checked carefully. Every step follows procedure. Nothing about it is personal. Above them, the helicopter tightens its orbit while the evidence is moved. One bundle at a time, transferred carefully. No shortcuts, no drama. On the destroyer's deck, the packages are laid out in neat rows under the morning sun. Plastic wrap reflects the light as the sailors organize them. To someone unfamiliar, it might look like simple cargo. To the crew, it represents impact. Each bundle tells a story of weeks, sometimes months, of planning. Networks of handlers, layers of transport. Money already promised to people who will now be left waiting. Stopping one shipment doesn't end that world, but it disrupts it. The runner is searched again from bow to stern. Compartments are checked. Fuel tanks are tapped. Every hidden space is examined. Nothing else appears. This crew was carrying exactly what they came to move. When the sweep is complete, the boarding officer signals the next step. Mission phase complete. The suspects are transferred under guard. The runner is secured for towing and seizure. Its engines are silent now, their work finished. On the bridge, the captain watches the final transfer through the display. His expression doesn't change. There's no celebration here, only confirmation. Another shipment stopped, another route interrupted. Another quiet disruption delivered far from headlines, closer to the source. The sea remains calm. The destroyer holds its position. And on the deck below, $98 million worth of product sits motionless in the sunlight, going nowhere. 6:14 local time. The operation doesn't end when the final bundle leaves the runner's hold. That moment is only the visible part. What follows is quieter, slower, and just as precise. On the destroyer's deck, the seized packages are secured under watch. Each bundle is checked again, weight confirmed, markings documented, seals inspected for tampering. Every detail matters, because this isn't just a seizure, it's a case. Below deck, the suspects are separated and monitored. There are no interrogations here, no speeches. That isn't this crew's role. Their responsibility is custody, not conclusions. The ocean doesn't care about motives, and neither does procedure. Meanwhile, the runner is prepared for towing. Lines are rigged. The condition of the hull is checked. Fuel systems are shut down. What was once a machine built for speed now sits powerless, reduced to evidence. Above it all, the helicopter finally turns back toward the destroyer. Its part of the mission is complete. Hours of footage, sensor data, and time-stamped records are already stored and backed up. That documentation is what matters later, long after the water closes behind the ship. From the bridge, the captain watches the radar picture return to normal. No new contacts, no surprises. The ocean begins to look empty again. That's how most missions end. For the crew, this wasn't an extraordinary day. It followed a pattern refined over years. Detect early, classify correctly, apply pressure without panic. Let systems and simple physics do what speed alone cannot. Running failed here for the same reason it usually does. Speed is temporary. Systems are not. The men on the runner believed that once they broke contact, distance would protect them. They believed the ocean was wide enough to erase their trail. What they underestimated was how little of the ocean actually goes unobserved. Radar doesn't get tired. Cameras don't blink. Aircraft don't need to catch you to control the situation. They only need to stay where you can't ignore them. By the time the runner's crew realized that, the outcome was already unfolding. Every push for more speed burned fuel they couldn't replace. Every turn cost momentum they couldn't recover. And every minute of silence narrowed their options. From start to finish, no shots were fired. That isn't hesitation, it's design. On paper, the result will be measured in dollars, 98 million that won't reach its destination. 98 million that won't fund the next boat, the next shipment, or the next plan. But the real consequences travel elsewhere. Routes get questioned, schedules collapse, trust inside those networks begins to crack. Somewhere higher up the chain, someone now has to explain why a shipment vanished into open water and never returned. Those conversations don't happen on the deck of a ship, they happen far from the sea. As the destroyer resumes its patrol, the crew slips back into routine. Watch rotations continue, helm reliefs change, maintenance checks resume. The ship doesn't slow down for a victory lap. There isn't one. This is what maritime interdiction actually looks like. No flashing lights, no dramatic finales, just awareness layered over discipline and patience, applied until there's nowhere left to run. Out on the horizon, the ocean hides nothing. The wake from the operation fades into calm water and sunlight. The runner will never make another sprint. The cargo will never reach its destination. And the men who believe speed could buy them freedom will soon understand how narrow that margin really was. Somewhere else, another boat is probably already being loaded. Another crew is telling themselves the same story, that if they move fast enough, they'll disappear before anyone notices. But they're wrong. Because out here, it isn't about who runs the fastest, it's about who was already watching.